You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
Hey Ramblers, today's episode is brought to you by Fangoria. Since 1979, Fangoria has been the authority in the world of contemporary horror. As the only sanctuary for horror aficionados in its early days, it has now grown into an empire that expands beyond its celebrated magazine. From t-shirts, coffee mugs, beanies, enamel pins, there's something for every horror fanatic in your world, even if it's you. So head on over to shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or use code pencil and paper productions at checkout to get 20% off your first order or magazine subscription. Yes, it is a mouthful, which is why there are links in the show notes down below. That's shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or code pencil and paper productions at checkout for 20% off. Fangoria, first in fright since 1979.
Buy it or we'll tear your soul apart.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Horror Ramblings podcast. The podcast that gets you wet in all the right places. Was that a little much? I don't think that was a little much. Do you? Not really.
It might have been.
I'm excited, and the only time that I'm wet in weird places these days is when I'm sweating from being outside. So we're not going to talk about my chafing issues, though, because we have an amazing guest on the show. I mean, I'm always so happy when she's here.
Aw.
How you doing?
You didn't even introduce her.
I know. I just want to ask how she's doing. Leah, how you doing?
I'm great. It's so nice to see the both of you. It's been a hot minute, and I'm happy to be back here on your fantastic show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I know. I'm terrible at introductions. I'm just so excited because it feels like casual conversation, and I feel like we've been talking a lot more on. They call it X now. But
No,
that's stupid.
I'm
on
always
Twitter.
going to call it Twitter. I don't give a shit.
On the Twitter, we've had
Twitter.
we've had some conversations on the Twitter, as my parents would probably call it, the Twitter, whatever that is. Tweeting used to be something different back in my day. Oh man, Steven, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right. I had a lot of research done today for this thing we're going to talk about because, oh man, what a film!
The film.
I have not been shocked in a good way by a film in a long time. And this film definitely, this film definitely did it for me.
Now you guys both understand when I say this movie fucks you in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
I'm just going to kind of fill in gaps as we go, but I know you always do such an amazing job with research, Steven. Do you want to kind of bring up what the movie was that we all watched, and
I've got notes.
Kind of give some information. I'll let you start then.
So today we're talking about I guess it's a Shudder exclusive. I think they had that label on there along with tons of other logos from other companies that seem to be investors in this project. But when Evil Lurks, or if you want to be precise, and I did do my homework, Cuando acecha la maldad. That is the Spanish, as best as I could do, because I don't speak Spanish. Just speak Japanese and English. But that is the Spanish-speaking or Spanish language title. When Evil Lurks is our American title, duh. And it's a Spanish language film directed by, I'm going to fuck up his name, Damien Rugna. Looks right.
Close enough.
He's an active writer, director, editor. Has been doing stuff for about 20 years. This film seems to be the one that really took off, from what I could see, because all the other movies, I've never heard of them. I didn't know anything. I've never heard of this guy. And then this one seems to be the one that finally got his name noticed. But if anyone knows anything else that was popular of his stateside, let me know on
We're not
the
from
social
Argentina,
media.
so he might be a big deal from there.
Yeah, absolutely could be, because all these actors in this film, everybody knows what they're doing. This is a professionally made film. I mean, there's no denying that whatsoever. So the basic plot of this story is, in a remote village, two brothers find a don't really find him. They just kind of, we'll get to it. They find a demon-infected man who's about to, quote-unquote, give birth to evil itself. So they decide to get rid of the body, only to end up unintentionally spreading the chaos. That is about as simplistic as we can put the plot for now, and we are going to spoil the shit out of it.
Just before we get too involved in talking about this, the basic premise of this film, and maybe I'm the only one here, it really gave me Evil Dead vibes as far as it spreading and everything. And
yeah,
and I appreciated that because they took a concept that I feel like if you did it the wrong way, it would just be compared to Evil Dead at every turn, and they made it their own. So I appreciate the hell out of that because, as you said, all of the performers in this film were just phenomenal. And I know we're going to spoil the shit out of it, but there's a few scenes in particular I'll kind of get into when we get into it. But I just wanted to make that little Evil Dead reference.
Yeah. I will try to go step by step, kind of like what we did before. If I miss anything, I think I got all the highlights, if you will. So stop me if there's something that I missed or overlooked. But the movie practically begins with Pedro and Jim, or if you want to get very specific, Jaime. It's your Spanish for today. They hear gunshots, seem to be about early morning. Did I get that right? I mean, it seemed dark and then suddenly it was daylight, so I'm assuming early morning. They go to investigate. They find something on their way, and I love this. I wanted to point this out because this is one of the first scenes in the movie that really caught my eye. They see something, and we see kind of a hand, and it just kind of pans over, and then we're like, oh, okay, so there's something going on here. They cut to another shot. Then you see the legs of the body over the shoulder of Pedro, I think it was, and then they slowly reveal that it's half a torso, and I was like, oh, shit. It was a beautiful shot. I loved it so much. So they find this half corpse on the land. They're just like, is it our neighbor? Is it somebody else? Maybe it was killed by a puma. If a puma could do that, I apparently have misjudged what a puma can do to a human being. But I'm not around him. I don't know. So they find a box full of gadgets and tools. They're just like, what is this? And then they find a document that has a name, which is Maria Elena Gomez, who's someone they know. And they're just like, okay, this is interesting. Let's go find her, talk to her, whatever. They go to her house. Something's a little off. She's starting to say that she's waiting for someone to come kill her son. Red flags go up, or at least for me. She's very calm about this, so you start to wonder, like, what the fuck?
No big deal.
Yeah, it's like, I gotta get... They're coming to get him. They're going to finish him. I gotta wait. So they get curious and just like, all right, well, maybe we need to go inside and see what she's talking about. They go inside and her son, I guess his name was Uriel.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah, Uriel. I don't really know what to, he's like a big swollen, It's
a massive pus, basically.
The bodily fluids coming off of him are just fucking rank.
Yeah, that was a very disturbing but very effective way of just, because you don't want to touch it. You know, when they had to start, not to jump ahead, but when they had to start touching him, I was just like, don't, fuck, get some gloves, man, come on.
To jump ahead real quick too, though, there's a part during that when they're like touching him and moving him where they move him just the right way and it's leaking everywhere out of his mouth, his nose. And I don't know about you guys, but I've never watched something and all of a sudden it's almost like they've invented smell-o-vision. It's almost like it's so disgusting you can smell it and you're like,
God.
Yeah.
I was sitting on the couch just like, eh.
This movie did make me gag more than once, I will say that.
Okay. You're going to have to tell us where.
What we were just talking about, and then we'll bring it up when it pops up.
Gotcha. Probably know where you're going, but we won't spoil it yet. Anyway, yeah. So this guy, Uriel, has apparently been possessed. Now, here's a question I want to lay out for the both of you, because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything, because I did back it up several times. Like, did I miss something? Did I miss a line? Everyone in this town seems to be very aware of this thing, this possession, this rot. or rotten, I think is what they refer
Yeah.
to it as. Did I miss how it just seems to be not an everyday thing, but it just seems to be like a local legend with this town?
Yes.
Does it not?
That's 100% how I took it too. And I'm not even really a legend, that it's more like it's fact. It can happen. We know people that have like experienced this, and they're very like almost superstitious about how they deal with all of it. Right.
Right. It just makes you wonder why you're still in this town. If that is something so pervasive in this town, why are you still there? And in fact, that is actually one of the questions, or one of the things that they pose. Just uproot and leave and you're fine. Or at least that's kind of the gist I got out of it.
To me, it felt like, because I think there's a line where they go to talk to, I guess, the police or whatever you want to say. And I think they say something like, this is the end of the world. And I didn't think of that as like them saying, oh, this is the end of the world, like everything's over. Like, I looked at it like they're saying, oh, we wouldn't have to worry about the rotten here in our part of the world because it's such a small part of the world. And I feel like they were all holding on to the old ways to a degree. Like, this is my land. This is where I want to die here. This is where I've always lived. This is where I've made my life. And I feel like, deniability is a powerful thing. And I feel like that's really at the core of why a lot of these people don't want to leave. It's like, this is my land. I'm not going to let old superstitions.
I don't know, because I found the people that lived in the country to be believing in the rot and the demons much more than the people that were living in the city, right?
True.
And they were the people that were like, let's get her, we got to go. Just leave it all, let's go. And then like, because they go to the town or the city, whatever, where the police are, and then other characters that come about, and they're all kind of flippant to it. And they're like, it's not our problem.
Yeah. I can see that.
It didn't, it kind of caught me off guard because they don't give you any kind of lead in or just like a pepper it in. It's just like, no, this is a thing that happens around here. Just so you're aware.
I think it gets you more invested though. Like in all honesty, when they don't over explain it. And to me, obviously we're all having this conversation about it, wondering what more there is to it. But I feel like that really lends itself to the story because you're not getting bogged down by too many details. It's like, yes, there is this thing that is happening. It is something that we've dealt with. Some people don't want to believe that it's happening. They know it's happening, but again, they want to deny it because maybe if they deny it long enough, it'll go away.
Yeah.
But I think it lends itself to the film.
I do too. You're like, this is how it is. Deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. So it does kind of give it a bit of life without having to over-explain, which, yeah, I can respect that. So like you two said, they go to talk to the police. They try to feel it out, find out that the police actually did do something. Only that was a year ago, that these cleaners were supposed to be coming and taking care of this, and they just now got around to it. They never did quite specify, or again, if they did, let me know. They didn't specify why it took a year, did they?
They mentioned something about the mayor. Like the mayor was involved in the decision as well, and like he knew about it, and he might be the guy that was like, dispatching those people.
Okay. So for whatever reason, the mayor was very dismissive of the whole thing. They all kind of have this argument back and forth. You start to get a sense of Pedro in this story right about here, like how he kind of comes off, because you can sense that there's something else going on. Because he and they call him the superintendent. I would have called him the sheriff, but same difference. It feels very, what do you call it? Standoffish.
They have history.
They've got a deep history. So we don't quite get an understanding of what that is just yet. And I guess we understand it later on. But right now it just seems a little like what's going on. So they go to see Ruiz, which is the guy they thought maybe was dead or had killed this guy because he was trespassing on their land. He's also known as Armand, so if we differentiate the names, just so you know. They mentioned the rot to him and that someone had killed someone, possibly the cleaner. They had kind of asserted or assumed as much. And he starts to seem concerned. Seems like he knows a little bit about this, like he's aware of this rot as it was. And they mention being marked if they speak about it. That was another thing that I didn't quite understand, like they were emphasizing, but I never felt like they really fleshed out is, don't talk about it. Shh, don't. If you say something, they'll follow you. They'll get you. And I think that maybe has something to do with the fear element of it. You know what I mean?
I believe in that shit from having ghosts attached to me my whole life. There's certain stories I'll never say out loud in case they come back. So I get what they're putting down here.
Okay. And see, now that's an element I've never considered. So you're a believer in the supernatural?
Yeah, that's a whole other episode, guys.
Okay.
But
we won't pull on that thread too hard. I was curious. So yeah, they talk to him, kind of get his feel on the situation. Then we kind of do a cut to a little bit later in the evening. He's kind of with his wife. They're eating dinner, and he just has he snaps. Like, he's like, fuck, I got to go take care of this. Got to do it right now.
His wife is pregnant too, by the way.
Yeah.
Which is important to mention. And she's like,
yeah.
on.
Yeah, very important detail. So
can I just say,
go for it.
Am I the only one that he kind of struck me as, I don't know what you would call an Argentinian redneck, but he kind of had a redneck vibe to me. I don't know why.
I think that he's the landowner of a lot of people there. And you know, that's why he's very concerned about the rotter that's technically on his land from these people that rent from him. And yeah, he is a redneck, but he lives richly. His house is nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. 100%.
I had a lot of mixed emotions about his character. There were things about him that I'm like, at least he's trying to do something. But at the same time, I'm like, this guy's...
He's also the catalyst for crazy, I think, and a lot of things going wrong.
Just so unstable. But I mean, the character works, I think, because of that. But as you were saying, I'm sorry.
No. I mean, that actually works because, yes, he does seem a little unhinged. He does seem to kind of be the fuel to the fire, as it were. Because he does. He goes and grabs his shotgun. He rushes off to the house to where Uriel is. And he's like, I just got to end it. But yet at the same time, he knows he doesn't need to do this.
But they're also warning him, do not shoot him. Do not use gunpowder. You will unleash and we're told right from that moment, not to do that. Even though the demon is kill me, and egging him on to get it done.
Uses a very specific taunt. Talking about his wife and what he's going to do to the child. And all that
that's
stuff.
Right.
Just come on, you do it. Very effective stuff. I literally thought he was going to shoot him in the face.
Me too.
He didn't. They kind of cut it away just at a moment where you think it's going to happen. So he relents. Next morning, it seems, the brothers show up back at the house. It's an odd cut because he was just there and then he pulls back up the next morning and then the brothers are there. So it's that's an editing thing. That's my frustration. They try to decide what they're going to do. And this is where we get to a very... this is gross.
Yeah, I just gagged a little in the back of my throat. Thanks for bringing that memory back.
You're welcome. So the plan here is they're going to... Now, I don't think we've painted a great picture. So let me do this for the audience. If you've never seen this movie, I'm trying to think of a great... reference point. I keep thinking of that what is it? It was a Vampire and Blade. The original Blade movie.
Oh yeah, I know which one you're talking about. The one that's all Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah.
The real fat one that monitors everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of that. Just a lot more rotty and gooey and just...
It's that meets Michelin Man meets Elephant Man. All wrapped up into one.
All the body fluids you could possibly imagine.
Every one of them.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what their plan was. Again, first of all, gloves. Hazmat suits. I know that these things aren't readily available, but looking at it, I'm not going in there. I'm not grabbing shit without some gloves on my hand. You know what I'm saying? Especially
Ruiz said he should have burned the house down. I kind of agree.
I think so too.
Yeah, it's look, woman, I'm sorry.
He just decides we're going to move him. We're going to take him.
Yeah. We're going to take him all the way the fuck out of town, away from everything, and then his curse, whatever's happening in our town, it'll be 20 miles down the road, I guess.
They drove for a long time, I think, though, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, not.
They said let's go. I mean, there was even a part where they cut away and they were like, let's go 100 more miles. So I mean, they went pretty damn far. I think the worst thing to me with that entire scene was when they got him outside.
Oh yes.
And the bodily fluids make the sheet rip open and he falls on the ground.
They like close up on it too, where he's just
Yeah.
hovering above the ground and you just see this fucking guy dripping and you're like, "Ugh." And you're like, how are they getting this fat fuck onto the truck?
Yeah, they're doing an amazing job, mind you. I mean, the fact that they even lifted him in the first place surprised the shit out of me because I thought there's no way you're going to get him off the floor, let alone the bed. And so I thought, yes, they're either going to have to burn this house down or, hey, how about wrap him up with a chain and yank him out with the truck? You know, just drag him across the road. No one will care. He wants to die anyway.
I don't know. Is that evil being left behind in bodily fluids everywhere?
Yeah, you could probably just like stretch him down the road.
Evil skid marks.
We can start a drinking game every time I make that gag noise. Listeners, have a drink.
But yes, they do get him in the truck with a little struggle. They finally get him in the truck. They go down the road. As they're driving down the road, they're talking. It's like, yeah, we can do this. We'll just go a little bit farther. We'll be fine. They almost hit a kid, which I felt like was going to come back into play, but it does if you think about it. It's important. They keep going, wind up at a bridge, say, hey, we're going to dump him right here. And then next thing you know, wouldn't you know it, the body's gone. What the shit? So now they're just like, well, what do we do? Should we go back and look at? No, fuck it. Let's go back home. And that's what they do.
How do they not feel that giant man, like, just like out the back of the truck? Like, they had a canopy over the back so they couldn't see the body per se, but like that man was like 400 pounds. You're not feeling that weight come off the back of your truck. That's just me being like picky and stupid now that I'm thinking about it. But I'm just like, how do you not feel that he's just gone from there? But again, magical demons, you know, like saw their opportunity.
And I mean, to be fair, again, I'm with you 100% because the weight you'd notice, I'd feel. But considering if it did fall off when they made the swerve, you're panicked.
And why didn't the kid see it?
Yeah, where was the body? Exactly.
Like,
why didn't his giant fat body take out the kid?
Yeah.
Well, and you know, the kid's yelling at him like, assholes, but you would have thought that the kid would have like turned over and been like, what the fuck was that?
Or covered in sploosh, like all the...
That's a bad day.
They thought they killed him and he's just like... Anyway, yeah.
I'm not going to be able to get that visual out of my mind.
So later that evening, everyone goes back home. Everyone just kind of got a lot on their mind. They're just kind of thinking it about, you know, and what have you. And suddenly, you know, we're at, what's his shit? Ruiz. I don't know why I forgot his name all of a sudden. Sitting at his house, he's pondering everything. And the next thing you know, you hear thunder. You hear his wife screaming. He runs outside. And apparently one of the goats is evil. That's all I got out of it for a moment because she's pointing at the goats going, yeah,
like that one.
And I'm like, which one? Which one? And I'm looking. They did a close-up. It didn't look evil to me. It looked like a goat.
We're all thinking of the Vitch, right? Like,
right.
Where there's Black, what's his name?
Black Phillip.
Black Phillip, that's right. I was waiting for Black Phillip, but this like thing just looked like the rest.
Looked like looked like a goat. So he points his rifle toward the goats, then up, shot. They scatter except for the one weird goat. He's just like, what's up? What's happening? And then he slowly walks up to the guy and his shotgun and just like, what? Bet.
And his wife is like begging him again, do not fire a gun and use gunpowder. Like this is one of the first rules that is just like hammered home to us, like not to use these things.
And it really makes you wonder why he's in this headspace where he won't not do that. You know, you've been told, don't do it.
Yeah.
And this is twice now.
This is very random about that scene, though. Maybe it's just for me, but there are a lot of really wonderful angles in this film. There's a lot of fantastic camera work. I actually found the scene where the goat walks up until the gun is touching its head. I actually found that scene to be really well executed, and I actually felt like the suspense in that scene. And you know, it doesn't seem like it would be a suspenseful scene, but the Ruiz, Ruiz, his wife, the actress, just her performance right in that whole scene when she's begging him not to do it and how torn he looks.
She even runs to go get an axe to be like, yeah, take this instead.
And this goat just walking up. And then the next thing you know, bam, And I'm sitting there watching this scene. Like, I just finished the movie before we got on here. But I'm sitting there watching that, and I'm like, this is suspenseful as hell. Like, what is going to happen next? And
You're fucked, is what I thought.
yeah, like as soon as the blood and everything just flew, I'm like, oh shit. And then, what plays out next?
Yeah, what plays out next was not the way I was expecting it to go, because
No.
the tension is built so much that I'm not quite sure whether or not he's going to do it or not. We already saw him with the gun prior. He didn't pull the trigger, so thinking that maybe cooler heads will prevail. Well, it doesn't. So he shoots the damn goat. And almost instantaneously, as he shoots the goat, he gets an axe to the head.
But do you know why, though? Like, I've read up on this.
Okay, please enlighten me, because I felt like there had to be a reason associated with it, and I didn't feel like we got a clear answer. So,
Well,
please.
because I went and I did read about this, and it's basically the second that he shot the goat, because he's not supposed to be using guns, that evil transferred into him. And then, like, his wife had an axe, which is not a gun, and she knew that she had to, like, end that evil as much as she could there. So, yes, but I mean, we're still not finished of that scene.
Yeah, no.
Because then she kills herself.
Yeah, and now was that part of the, I guess, the
I don't
process?
know if that was part of like the whole possession thing, because like that's the gap in the rule there. But like, yeah, she turned it around and starts like axing herself in the face, pregnant mama.
And as disturbing as it is, I felt like they could have made that so much worse. You know what I mean? And so I appreciate they didn't take it farther than they did. You know what I mean?
But if you think about it, it was probably a really dull fucking axe.
True. Yeah.
And like the thunk.
Yeah.
Thunk into her face herself, and just like probably not having that upper strength to like. Yeah.
The thing for me was when she was still trying to hit herself as her body was falling.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
And
last
the fact that this film made a pregnant woman do that to herself, that's brutal enough. And I think I have a little bit of a theory, because the demon in the very beginning talks about when it's trying to get Ruiz to shoot it, it's talking about taking his child, possessing her. So I'm wondering if she might have already had the evil spreading into her through the innocence in her womb.
Oh,
and that might
so
have been what caused that to happen. Like, I was thinking about that really, really hard, even just right after that scene.
I just think that like the whole evil, you can just like feel it on the farm ground. Like it's like, you just know at this point, it's fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally like a plague. I mean, I don't really know another way to
I would
describe
agree with that.
When one of the kids refers to it as like a virus.
Yeah, same difference.
And yeah, like I got the feeling in this film of that. Like, it's just all over the place. You don't know where it's going to hit next, but you sort of get a general idea of what might happen or who might, get infected next. A lot of it has to do with who's offing the evil. The evil's finding the sources that take it out of this world to take over, I guess.
Right. So after that lovely scene, we are cut to the guy who was, the boy. He was what, 13, 14, you think?
Something like that. He was pretty young.
Yeah. So we'll say this teenage boy who was who I guess it was Maria's son.
Yeah.
He comes to the brother's house, tells them, that something's happened at Armand's. He shot the goat. The wife is dead. He's dead. Everybody's dead. They don't know what to do. He's terrified. His mother's gone. And they're just like, can I stay here? And they're like, not really, but maybe. Like, they just don't want to. They're kind of in this weird spot. It's like, we don't want to help, but we kind of do. So we're just, you can stay in this saddle room or whatever the hell they called it, but you got to leave first thing in the morning. And you can't use electricity. That's another one of those rules.
He tells them that, doesn't he? And that's our second major rule.
Yeah, don't use electricity. So, yeah, the boy tells them that. They're just like, okay. Next day, we go and we find that they are driving to, or going to go to Pedro's family that we didn't know he had. Because
he's decided to leave now. They're like, fuck it, and don't bring anything from the house. We're going to have to burn our clothes. Like, we're going to get my kids, and we're out of here.
Yeah, we're gone. That's the plan. As it should have been, because that's what they said. Just drop everything and go. Don't worry about it. Just go.
Because it leaches onto your clothes, your personal possessions, everything, which might also be another reason why the wife killed herself too, right? Like,
yeah, good
it's
point.
here,
good
it's
point.
in me now.
So yeah, they decided this is what they're going to do. Pedro is dropped off at his ex-wife's house. Now, this whole scene,
It's so chaos.
Jesus Christ, yeah, it was a lot of chaos. So, and the way they do it, they
I
give
love
you
seeing your faces. I'm sorry. They did not watch this movie before, and this was my second
Yeah.
viewing, so I'm really enjoying seeing your reactions to these moments.
So we are not really privy to the fact that he had any family whatsoever outside of his brother before now. Then we get the understanding he's got kids. We're like, okay, he's got kids. Good. But when we get to this house, he's greeted by a man who doesn't seem like he gives a shit about him. Then we find out that there is another, or that his wife does live there, but it's an ex-wife. Then there's a kid, but you think, is that his kid? She doesn't seem like she wants anything to do with him. And then there's another kid that does want something to do with him. Then you hear of another kid, and it's like, wait a minute, what is happening here? There's all this chaos. The mother, her name is Sabrina, she's saying, get out of my house. You don't need to be here. You're a deadbeat. Just usual
I think there's a restraining order too, like he's not allowed to be there.
Yeah,
Yep.
a restraining order. That's the big deal. That's one of the reasons everyone's freaking out, because they're not supposed to be there. Now, I've just explained everything that happens after the fact. I didn't even mention that the fact when he got there, he pushes himself inside, begins stripping his clothes. His ex-wife walks in when he is bare ass naked, wadding his clothes up and just asking for clothes. And she's like, what the fuck are you doing in my house? So it's a lot. And then finally he does get clothes. He's trying to explain it. They don't want to hear it. They're just like, you're nuts. You're crazy. Get the fuck out of my house. It's lunatic. Now, here's the other part. As all this chaos is going on, the daughter is sitting with the dog. The dog had gone and sniffed the clothes.
And he's a big dog. He's like from Turner and Hooch big.
Yeah, we're talking like one of these, what do you call them? Not a Rottweiler, but something in that vein.
No, he's a big orange dog like Turner and Hooch. That's like the thing.
Pit bull.
No, he's
Maybe.
not a pit bull either. He's
More like a mastiff.
Yeah.
Like
He's
a
a
mastiff
blend of
mix
some weird.
kind. Yeah.
He's
one
a
of the big
dog.
fucking dog. Yeah, big fucking dog. As they're sitting there and she's just petting on him and the dog's sitting there and the fight is going on, I'm thinking that dog's going to attack that girl.
Yeah,
that dog is going to attack that girl.
Like, you're like, oh God.
I'm waiting for it. I'm
I think
waiting.
we all are waiting for it. Because the fight's in the background and like the dog and the girl.
They just keep cutting back to it. And that's when I was just like, you sons of bitches, y'all are going to, okay. But they continue to focus back on the fight. And the fight escalates and it just keeps going. And you're like, you forget about it for a moment. And then the moment you do, rah! And she gets...
And it is brutal too. Like right to the face, you see the blood spatter, and then
Takes her under the table.
And then you watch the dog drag her off, and you're like, holy fuck.
And
then
the
you
little
see
boy, the brother, which
Oh
is
my God.
actually Pedro's son, has seen the whole thing from the
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you look under the table and the dog shakes
Yeah.
the
Oh
body
my
of the daughter, and you're just like, holy frick.
Yeah. It was intense.
It didn't pull any punches. Like I know it could have been worse too. They could have like overdid it and made it much worse, but it was bad enough.
It was bad enough.
Yeah,
See, that's where I've got to give respect to this director, because for all the heavy punches that he's taking or giving, he's also dialing it back just a little bit. Like he understands this is going to be brutal, so I don't want to make it any harder for everybody to watch.
It's so well done.
Yeah, and I respect him for that, because that's a director who understands if you want to keep your audience engaged, you can't run them off. And not everybody's going to be on board for the gore, especially for a child. You know what I mean? That's a deal breaker for some
Save
people.
it for later.
Right. So, yeah, and I've had to make that argument. I know we've talked about this less before, but I make an argument when it comes, I know people do not want to see children die in movies. I get it.
Or animals. They lose their minds if it's like your pets.
Yeah.
Not the dog, not the cat.
Which, I'm sorry, I love animals, but...
Me too, but sometimes the cat's got to go, and I'm a cat owner, so...
Yeah, I shrug. I'm just like, I'm sorry. Would you rather it be the kid? It's a dog. It's a cat.
Not the dog. I'd pick the dog.
But I argue...
yeah.
I argue that if it serves the story, I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
If you're doing it just for shock value, because I can point to movies that do both. So I know what I'm talking about. I know the line that I'm drawing here.
And
So-
sometimes there's a fine line with that too, though. I think sometimes people might see something as shock value when it's really showing you just how unforgiving these villains in these films are. The kids that die in this film, it does serve a purpose. I feel like the deaths are shocking deaths. That's for sure. They are. But it's showing you just how much this entity, I don't even know if I would call it an entity, but just how much this evil doesn't care. Like it doesn't segregate. Innocence of any kind is going to be destroyed.
Sure.
So
yeah. So we've got that whole thing going. What really pissed me off about that scene more than anything is the fact that none of the parents heard shit.
It wasn't really loud, though. It was like a chomping under the table, and then the kid was like, you gotta come and see what's happening.
I
But
guess.
the dog is in and out of there and gone, takes the body of the little girl.
I guess he did kind of swallow her head in some aspect. So muffled scream. It was just frustrating because everybody, you could see him in the background. How did you not see that?
It was so real, though, the reaction after, like, when everybody finally got pulled away from the fight for a second, instead of everyone dicking around and still fighting like you see in some movies when something bad is happening in the background, I feel like that was a legitimate reaction that any parent would have. Like, the dogs ran off with the kid and everybody's booking it. Even these two guys that probably don't particularly care for one another at all.
Yeah.
They are running to try to find her. And then, Pedro, obviously, he realizes, like, I'm not going to be able to do anything about this. And then what is the other guy's name?
I don't know. Buddy guy.
Buddy guy. We'll call him Buddy guy. Yeah.
But he takes a shotgun and he's running out of the house.
And he's giving him the
like,
warning.
Don't shoot the dog.
Yeah.
Don't shoot the dog. Again,
and everybody just thinks he's nuts.
Yeah.
His name's Leo. I knew I wrote it down.
Yeah, right. That's another really great thing that this director does is like how he continues to push the story forward instead of like dwelling in places. Like from the moment we start this film, something is happening and it continues to happen until like the credits roll.
Yeah.
We're not
100%.
wasting any time on anything here.
And I love that too because it adds to the suspense in the horror because you don't get a moment to breathe as an audience. Like there are a few moments where things kind of cool down a little bit, but you know that something's about to happen. So you're still in that like suspenseful mindset. So you're constantly just waiting for what's going to happen next.
Yeah. So as Leo is running off after the dog, everyone's back at home kind of in a panic, or at least the one daughter, or not the daughter, God damn it. The mother, that's who I'm trying to say. Christ. Trying to make sure I got it. No. As he comes back, that's right. I forgot. He comes back to the house after they'd been chasing the dog. And when he comes back, everything's fine. The little girl is sitting right there with her mother, and everything just seems like, what the fuck? What is this?
Yeah.
Not a scratch on her. And the mom's asking, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you hurt? And she's like, no.
Yeah, fine.
Did you notice too when she was talking to her, even though the little girl was talking, there was quite a few scenes where she's shaking her head no. I don't know if you guys picked up on that, but there's a few parts where the mom's like, are you okay? And she's shaking her head no, but she's saying yeah.
I feel like I did see that, yeah. And that's a clever little thing, like your brain is fighting.
It really messed with me. And then when she whispers in her mom's ear that daddy's going to drive home and boom.
Gonna drive a truck right into you and kill you. And the mom's like, what? And then, but she still kind of goes back to being like, oh, I'm so happy that you're alive.
Yeah, what the fuck is wrong with her?
We get
that
to see
would
this.
terrify me. My child says that shit to me.
And we get to see the little girl die twice. Like, what the fuck?
But not really.
But not really.
Not really.
So as all that chaos is going on outside, Pedro goes inside and we find out about his other son. I think his name was Jair, is how they pronounced it.
Yeah.
Who seems to be an autistic invalid of some...
He does. They mention once later in the film that he does have autism.
Yeah.
And there's something I want to point out about that later, but go ahead.
And again, I don't want this to seem like a criticism. I'm trying to be appreciative of how they told the narrative. As if we were just dropped in to this group of people And they're not taking the time to really explain who's who, because I got confused at this point. I was like, all right, whose kids are his? Because clearly the daughter is not his now, but the boy is his. So then this boy is his.
Both the boys are his, yeah.
Right. And usually in a movie like this, you have, like you said, they waste time, and there'll be that moment where it's like, well, yeah, but, she's married to this guy now, and that one kid, she's not yours. Needless exposition that doesn't serve the story versus just dropping us in and just letting us figure the shit out as we go along. Because I finally did. But we had Jair. He's trying to get him up out of the bed. He has this, what would you call it, where he likes to bite on shit. What would you call it? He's having
a fit. He's stressed out. And he probably hasn't seen his dad for a really long time, too.
Yeah.
So if you know anything about autistic children and their routines changing, it can be like super traumatic to them. And especially if they're nonverbal, I mean, he says words, but he's not verbally communicative to the people around him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he's probably like, oh my God, who is this guy? Oh my God, I'm biting my finger, until his dad can calm him down and be like, we're going to go get some apple ice cream.
Right. And that seems to be something that he uses to kind of, I guess, get him focused on something to kind of, so he can manage whatever's happening with that. And he gets him downstairs. He's trying to find keys, because this was another part of that argument, asking for the car keys or something like that so he could take the car. Since he wasn't getting it from the ex-wife, he goes, talks to the kids. He was like, hey, the keys. Do you remember the keys? And he does something with Jair to kind of get him to point out where the keys are. And they just happen to be in the kitchen right nearby. And he kind of reaches up on a spot on the counter or whatever and just
like a little cubby,
yeah. Yeah. And then there are the keys. Get in the car, take off. Well, they are trying to Pedro has got them in the car. He's looking at the wife and the ex-wife and the daughter. And I don't know, there's just an odd sequence there where it's almost like he's wanting to take them, but he knows the shit that's happening right now is already long gone. Like, he knows that girl's dead. And then, of course, the truck comes in, as predicted by little Vicky, the little girl's name. And they get plowed over with, neighbors coming to see what's happening later, I guess. Even though the daughter's sitting there dancing after they drive away.
Yeah, you see both of them get totally smoked. And then, there she is on the side. This is all for you, Damien. That's what I think of her. And that's honestly the last time we see her as well, right?
Yeah.
There's questions left in my mind about her.
Yeah.
Part of me wonders if the dad, if maybe that was like the last little bit of humanity in him, that he was seeing his daughter dancing and she wasn't there.
No, I think she was there.
I don't know.
You look at you look at the evil that's throughout this entire film, I fully believe that little bitch was just like, dun, 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 next.
Going over to the neighbor's house like, you're going to die. What?
Yeah. So after Leo turns his wife and daughter into pancakes, and he's battered, wouldn't you know it? Get it?
Pancake batter. I love dad jokes.
Pedro goes and finds his brother and mother. And the mother seems to have, again, this is where I started questioning what people knew about this, because she seemed to have a better knowledge of this truth, but not all the details, but she had a little bit more. So as they're sitting there talking to her, she doesn't really know what's going on, but then they kind of let her in on it. She lays out a few extra rules, a few little details.
Because the little boy is lying in her lap and starts asking questions about the rotters and like what the rules are. And so she says there's 7 and she tells them all. And it's kind of upsetting the brothers in the front because, like, again, you shouldn't be speaking of these things.
Right. So everyone kind of gets a little antsy about it. They eventually stop at a gas station. There's this really chaotic scene about money and ice cream and all this other shit just happening within the car. And then finally there's a phone call from the mother's cell phone that comes up as Sabrina.
Yeah.
Which Pedro knows, oh, fuck no, she's dead. And everyone's like, what? Just answer it. He's like, no, let me have it. And he takes it off, answers the phone. It almost comes off like a regular conversation at first and then quickly devolves into, I fucking hate you, you piece of shit.
I'm
just taking
shots. My kids.
Yeah. Coming for my kids, whatever. Just attacking, the psychological warfare that would normally happen with an ex that you hate. Finally, we get in this moment, and I do want to kind of point this out too, because I just kind of made a note in my head. We find out in this point as she's trying to manipulate him psychologically that she cheated on him with the guy. And I almost wondered why he was getting painted as the bad guy, but then I also thought, well, if he was an absent father and he wasn't there and he wasn't helping, of course she's going to cheat. You know, he's not there. So that's however you want to define that, that's up to you. I think both of them are in the wrong or in the right, however you want to put it.
She also calls him a murderer in that conversation, and that really made me...
Yeah, did we ever get any...
Yeah, like...
There is something that's later in the story where, like, and I can't remember if it's like when the cops come back into things, because they mention a specific charge that Pedro had, or no, I'm sorry, like it's a rumor, and it's the brother talking to the lady that's coming up later in the story, and like he's like, no, people talk in town and that's bullshit, and this was just a rumor, and it kind of just paints a little bit more of a picture, and it was about him stuffing something into something like an exhaust or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember that, and I backed it up to try and understand what I missed, and I still didn't quite understand what happened. I felt like maybe there was probably more to that.
Again, they're only like showing us what we need to know, right? We're only painted like his backstory isn't fully important.
True.
To this.
Yeah. So everything that I was praising earlier, sticking to what we need to know. You
just know that he has his. You just know that he has his own demons.
Yeah. There's.
Ooh, Les.
Ooh.
Bringing it to
you. So as Pedro is getting the fourth degree from his demon ex-wife, he finally just breaks the phone and snaps, kind of blaming himself for everything that's going on because there's a lot happening right now. And then Jimmy comes and kind of checks on him. He's like, hey, man, get your shit together. Why don't we go meet somebody that I think might be able to help us? Les, you got something on your mind?
She's got money. She's got experience.
When you said the demon ex-wife, I was just thinking, isn't every ex-wife a demon? Just saying. Sorry.
Double entendres, pal.
I'm sorry.
Anyway.
Anywho.
They arrive at Myrta's, who seems to be very aware of what's going on. Like, she's in it. She
doesn't know what's happening right now, but she's had a history.
Yeah.
Dealing with this. She has no idea what's going on because she lives off. She says right away, I have no electricity. I live off the grid, and she's out of town kind of deal.
Right. So she offers to let them stay, but just lets them know, I don't, like Leah just said, I don't have any of this shit, but I got a room. If you want it, that's the best I can do. Pedro's not too keen on it. He's just more like, nah, let's just go to the city. It'll be fine. Although he is cool about taking her money. Let's not miss that detail. It's like, nah, we'll.
But he does say though, don't make it sound like he's like trying to swindle her, because he does say to Jim that he's like, does she know that we're going to pay her back? Like, we're good people. He actually says like, we're good people, I think.
So unfortunately, she's not going to have any money up until Monday. I don't know what day it is. I don't know if y'all happen to catch it, but
I think they were going to go the next day, and it was at the bank that she didn't have the money in the house.
So today is Sunday. We got to wait a night, and then we can go get the money tomorrow, and then we can be on our way. So said, fine, screw it. We'll wait it out. Now, apparently, all this stuff is happening. There's an incident with the other boy. I'll just leave it at that. He stays in the car for reasons. Inside, Jimmy is talking with Myrta about what's happened, and we kind of get some understanding that they have a history, as I took it as lovers. They seem like they were once an item or a thing at one point.
But wasn't she also his school teacher? That's what because later on in the night, there's a conversation between Pedro and Jim, and of like him being like a lover, and he always loved being in school, and he was so sad when it was all said and done. So I was wondering if like he had a fling with his teacher years later. Like they definitely had something.
Yeah, maybe he was having a fling in school. Maybe that's why he was so excited about school.
Yeah. No more hand jobs after class.
They were definitely planting seeds. So, yeah, okay. So, yeah, they're kind of chit-chatting about everything, what's going on. Jimmy isn't quite sure. As he's talking to her, he's like, I don't know if it was a rotten thing or not. But Myrta, she's like, yeah, you're going to know if you saw one. So later that night, Jair and did we ever get the mother's name? I didn't catch her name at all.
No, I'm just call her their mom.
Okay, I'm just going to call her the mom or the mother. They're still out in the car. Pedro and Jimmy are starting to chat on the porch. And that's obviously when we kind of touched on just now that we kind of got that hint of the relationship between Jimmy and Myrta. Pedro decides to go sleep in the car. The mother goes inside with the kid. And they're laying up in bed, and she's got one of them little teddy bears with the thing that you shine on the ceiling for the kid, I guess. And then suddenly, wouldn't you know it, something lurks in the darkness. Later in the night, Jair's out in the car. We're kind of seeing him, but he's wide awake as Pedro is still asleep. And then we see a vision off in the back, getting closer and closer and closer to the car until we see a nice bloody hand smear across the car. And then everyone's in a panic. Holy shit, she's here. Let's go. Let's go. Everybody's trying to figure out what's happening. We run inside. We see that Sabrina, or the dead Sabrina, is just kind of circling around and around and around.
The mother actually wakes up to her in the room holding the child. Everyone's still asleep downstairs. They're not awake yet. And she's like, I took my sleeping medication. I feel kind of drugged. And then the screaming occurs because she's like, holy fuck, this bitch is here. Yeah. And she's got the youngest child.
Yeah, she sees her face is all mutilated. I think that's what
it's mangled.
Brings her because she looks normal on the one side, but then she turns and she sees the mangled face. I think that's what kind of brings her out of her stupor, and she's like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
So Pedro runs upstairs to see what's happening. Sees Sabrina holding his son Santino, or we'll call him Sonny, because that's a good Italian name, Sonny, even though they're not Italian. He finds Sabrina.
I'm like, wrong country, dude.
But it sounds like an Italian name. That's Sonny. Sonny, what's his name? Why can't I remember the name of the family? The family. What are they called?
The Pedros. That's just what I've been calling them.
Nope. Godfather. Godfather.
Pedro's the dad.
Godfather. What are they called?
Corleone.
Thank you, Jesus Christ. Sonny Corleone. Santino. That was his name, Santino.
I could do bad Godfather impressions all day.
He jumps out the window with my son. What am I supposed to do? So, yeah. Sabrina says some things to Pedro. Pedro's kind of panicky, and then next thing you know, she just jumps out the window.
With the kid.
With the kid in tow. Pedro makes a mad dash outside, but wouldn't you know it, she's just gone. I mean, these motherfuckers must run like Olympic runners or whatever.
Or maybe they teleport, because I mean, really, if we think about it, we were questioning the body coming out of the back of the truck, and we hear somewhat of a splat when Sabrina and the child hit the ground.
That's true.
And these things are just gone. So
he goes to the car, Pedro, after he can't find the bodies of the two people that jumped out the window, and he sees all the blood all over the car, checks on Jair to make sure that he's okay. Nothing seems to be amiss. However, when Myrta walks up to the car, she's like, that's a demon. And Jimmy's like, nah, he's fine. He's just like, no, that's a demon. And then she kind of points out that his hands and feet are all kind of gnarled up in a certain way. And she says, understand that a demon can't really take him over like this as quickly as someone else. It has a lot of shit it's got to work through.
His mind's like a puzzle to get to what he wants.
Yeah. That was something I was going to point out that I thought was really interesting. I've never heard another movie do that. She talks about that they've seen this with children with autism, that it's hard for them to navigate their minds. And I thought that was a really interesting concept.
It is.
That would be something cool to see in another movie, I think.
Sure.
To actually talk about that, because it's not something that you would ever really think of. And I don't know. There was something about that I just found insanely interesting.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So when we get back inside, she kind of explains a little bit more about everything that's going on. Kind of mentions it almost sounded like feeding off your fear, but I don't know. For some reason, that just seems too simple.
We got Freddy Krueger up in here? What?
Because she makes it sound like Pedro. He seems to be the catalyst of everything going on. Your fear is what is driving this thing. It's working off of that.
It's easier to get into because he's so scared. Whereas Jim is less scared. The woman is less scared.
Yeah. So if you're not scared, it kind of doesn't work on you, or it doesn't affect you per se. So it is fear, but I don't know. The way they described it, it seems like saying it feeds on your fear is not the right way to describe it. Like she kind of mentioned it at one point, like if you're afraid of dying in a hole, that's how it's going to try and kill you, is bury you in the hole. Something to that effect, I suppose.
Can I back up to something just real quick?
Please.
When they're talking about the son that's in the car that's possessed, I don't know if it's just me. You know, Sabrina said when she called him on the phone, "I know where you are."
Yeah.
I feel like she was able to do that because he was already possessed. I feel like when they were talking about it in the car, when the youngest grandson was asking the questions, I feel like he was already possessed. And I feel like...
It was, because remember, that's the only word he kept saying over and over again. Possessed,
and that's,
possessed. And we didn't mention that, so...
Yeah, and so I think that's how she was able to actually know where he was, because I feel like this evil sort of is like a hive mind. Like, even though multiple
and
people...
if you're touching
animals,
anything, like, you know, like if the dog got it from smelling the clothes, you know, like everybody was in that house. The children, like even the little boy was touching the dog, you know.
Yeah.
The dad touched the son, and then the dad went upstairs to go get his older son, you know, like it's passed around worse than herpes, basically.
Very good
it's the herpes of demonic possession.
It really is.
Make a
if follows ain't got shit on this.
Oh man. But yeah, I wanted to back up to that just real quick, because I feel like that was, you know, for people who might be like, how did she find them? I feel like that was how she found them.
Yeah.
So, but as you were saying,
well, we'll get to the sequel when herpes lurks next time. So as they've kind of laid out all the fear exploitative nature this thing has, she says point blank, don't be afraid to die. Don't be afraid. That's what fuels it. And even after she explains all this, Pedro's like, I'm going after my kid. I wanted to smack him at that point, but I get it. You're just not thinking clearly. Finally, Myrta reveals one final very important detail, which, again, is another interesting wrinkle to how this story plays out. The rot, as we've been told, is a birthing phase. So everything that was happening to Uriel earlier, this is just like the proverbial cocoon, as it were. That's why he's so gross and disgusted. I mean, it makes sense, I suppose.
That's what it takes for a guy to grow a vagina? Ugh.
Yeah. Only in its essence is it free. It can still be stopped from being born. However, they just have to find the body, you know, and when
she also has to kill him with her, like, because she's a cleaner. She was a cleaner for like how many years, and she's got very specific equipment that she is bringing.
Mm-hmm. So if they can figure out where they put the body or where they lost the body, I guess that would be the proper term. Where they lost it.
Where it flew off the back of the truck, like, you know, a case of empties.
Moral of the story, don't lose shit.
Yeah, please don't.
Tie your bloated demonic bodies down in the truck bed.
So after they mention, and I give her a lot of props for this, because when they were trying to lay out it was like, well, yeah, we know where the body was, but we kind of moved it. And she's like, you did what now?
Yeah.
Like, you stupid assholes.
Yeah.
So she's a little frustrated, but it's fine. We're going to go find this body. So they all load up. They decide they're going to go try to find this body. And I was surprised that Myrta went with Pedro and that...
Yeah, they're in two separate cars.
Yeah, two separate vehicles. And I was surprised she kind of went with him because, you know, her and Jimmy have the history. But I guess here's where we get a little bit of exposition, because she does start mentioning that she was married at one point. Her and her husband had a church. They met some monks known as Cobras. They helped them defeat these rots. Even mention, I don't want to gloss that over because that was a very important story. The first encounter they had with a rotten was some guy just rolls up in their church and starts vomiting everywhere.
But she does mention first, before getting into them becoming these people, that they were running like a holy roller kind of church situation where they had actors, and they were like, you know, to be like, oh, I feel the spirit kind of deal. And the first guy that rolled up that ended up having this possession, that's when they're like, this is something else, because this guy's an actor, but he's like puking all this shit all over the place now, and we didn't pay him for that.
So you understand that they are exploiting the church, as it were, So they kind of thought this was maybe penance, or maybe she pretty much says God is dead and the times of churches ended very quickly. So they're in a completely different world now. And they met the monks. They taught them how to be cleaners, as it were, and they were doing that for about 12 years, trying to repair the damage that they had done. Apparently that's how her husband died. We didn't get a lot of details. We just know that he did not return from a cleaning, I suppose. Then Marta mentions having to outrun this evil, but now wonders whether or not it has found her, because she's been hiding.
And maybe if this was
time.
the whole point, was to find her. She wonders that.
Yeah, because she's, like we said, she's been out there away from all this for so long, and then suddenly, oh, it's right back in my life again. So Pedro points out that it took his son, not her. So she's just like, maybe that's why. And she's like, no, but you're the one that's scared. So of course it's going to be worried about what you want, not me. Trying to justify it all. Jimmy, on the other hand, in a different direction, different truck, does drive up on Sabrina.
You should really mention, though, before, like, both vehicles, she's like, you can't drive with your lights on. They keep turning the lights of their headlights on and off as they're creeping through. And this is really important in the scene of, like, Jimmy coming up against Sabrina, because it just really builds the fucking tension, like, on, off.
Because you wonder what happened to Sonny. Where's the Sonny boy? Well, as we get these little flickers, we finally see that she's snacking on his brains, or at least that's what I kind of...
It's such a scene.
Out of it. Dear God. So Jimmy's kind of freaked out at this point, and he's like, you know what? Fuck it. And decides to just ram her with the truck.
Wait, though, like, he passes her and actually stops the car and shuts everything off. So we get a second full view of her slowly walking past the car. Like, Jimmy doesn't even exist. And she's just, like, pulling into her son's brain like it's a bag of popcorn. And that scene is just so messed up. Like, it is beyond... It's one of the pinnacle scenes of this film for me, for sure.
100%. It's so matter of fact. This is happening. This is back to
the killing of the kids.
Back to the killing of the kids.
There's no remorse in it or anything. It's just brutal savagery. And
it's so quiet, too, as she's just walking by, and you just hear these little wet munches and parts like dripping on the ground. You're like,
it's like driving by a bad accident. You know you shouldn't be staring at it, but you can't help but stare at it because of the shock that you're in.
Yeah. I think that was one of the most shocking scenes of the movie for me when that happened.
Yeah. So after he hits her with the truck, he then subsequently rams her into a tree. He seems like he's okay. His airbag popped. Luckily, he's a little bloodied and bruised, and her head is now inside the truck, upside down, looking at him, and starts taunting him yet again. So, what fun. Back at Myrta's, and this is when you know shit got really bad, Jair is up and walking around, chit-chatting, asking his grandmother, I'm cold.
Give me some cookies.
I'm hungry. And you're just like, okay.
Fully
and
verbal.
She is very aware at this point, like, I'm just not going to move.
I'm shitting my pants with her. You're just like, no, nothing good is going to come of this.
And I wondered where that was going, because I was like, oh, okay, we're going to have to put a pin in this because we got to come back to that.
Yeah.
And boy, did we. So Pedro and Myrta eventually happen upon a sign that points them to a school, and they're just like, hey, kids, no, evil loves children and children love evil.
I love that line so much. As a non-breeder, sorry to you two dads in here. I was like, I fucking get what you're putting down. Such a great line. I love it so much.
I can't disagree. So they decide, since evil and children go hand in hand, they're going to go to the school because that makes the most sense. And they get to the school, they start prowling through different rooms until they eventually stumble upon a classroom full of children. And they're not sure what to make of it.
They're sitting in the dark.
Just slowly kind of creep in, just like, hey, what's going on, guys? And you kind of see this one kid that seems normal. She seems panicky and frightened, and all the other kids look weird and dead and whatever. So they try to engage with the one kid, and then you've got another kid behind her. It's like, shh, shut up. And then they just back the hell out of the room. Like, no, we don't need any of this shit. So it kind of comes to them that, maybe there's something up here. Maybe it's here. Maybe it's not here. They go outside trying to decide what they're going to do. This was the kid they almost ran over, was it not? That comes walking up. Because the kid was on a bike. And then I thought about it after the fact, and I was like, is this that same kid?
You might be right. You very well could be right about that. I'd have to really go back to those two moments, because when we see the kid cursing in the street, it's fast.
Yeah, it's so blink and you miss it. So I could be wrong, but
you could also be very right.
Could be, maybe. I don't know.
He was late. He was late to come into school.
Right. I almost got ran over by some lunatics in a truck who dropped
that was hours ago, but hey.
But maybe that's why. It could have been the kid. He found the body. He was like, dude, they just delivered it on a silver platter. I found it right here. We all got to come and gather it up. Could have been. I don't know. So yeah, this kid shows up with a bike, and he's just like, hey, he didn't say shit. He just walks inside the school, and they're just like, hey, kid, hey, kid, hey, kid. And he doesn't pay any attention. Then the girl that they thought was okay comes running out. Well, they did question the boy first, right? Yeah, because they were asking if they had seen anybody who'd been hurt or anything, trying to gauge if they could find where Uriel was. And he's like, I don't know. I don't know. And I think he points him to... He
comes back out of the school to say, that's right. He's over at this place over here. And then the other little girl that we thought I never thought she was okay. She looked like fucking Satan incarnate. Sure. So.
It was the...
He was just the most verbal of the bunch. She's the little manipulator Mary.
Mm-hmm. So, she comes running out saying, don't believe what he said. He's actually over here. Luckily, Murda's got some smarts on this, and she's like, they're fucking with you. They're just trying to mislead us, which means he's here. Yeah. But I also don't want to gloss over the fact that Pedro beat the ever-loving piss out of this girl. I mean, this is a child, and he beat her fucking ass. Yeah. Good God.
She wasn't bleeding, and she was just crying on the ground.
No. But at this point, can you blame him? I mean, I think...
No, I did not like that little girl at all. The entire time that she's in this last portion of the movie, she did her job. She did a good job.
Yeah. So they decide the body's here, got to be here. They're trying to get us to leave. They're trying to protect it because that's the whole purpose of this. We got to find it. So they go inside. It looks like they wound up in the gymnasium, kind of checking around on the main stage, found a few loose planks. Removed one or two, find some dead adults, and they're just like, well, that's kind of odd. And then the kids show up out of the blue, just standing at the door like, what's happening, guys? Murdo tells Pedro what you need to go do, because it's probably down there. Go get my tools, calmly, don't run, and then we'll just take care of this, no problem. So he goes and gets her tools, comes back. Now, I do want to point this out. I'm gonna come back to this scene in a moment, because... there's something about this. I guess it's the intensity that kind of got amped up for everything that's going on is what led to this. But there's something that happens right now as Pedro goes out to get her tools that happens again, and it turns out bad, if you know what I mean. So he goes to get the tools, comes back. She starts setting up her tools. Pedro's pulling up the planks. There's dead bodies up under there of all the adults, covered in lime to try and hide the stink, because we already know how bad it stinks. We talked about it when we were watching it leak out of the pus. Uriel starts talking again, because I think that was another thing they were curious about. Was like, was he still alive? Is he still? And
he's like, and his eyes open. He's like, kill me right away. He's like trying to get him to kill him.
At least he was kind of in that mindset, but then it started getting into the more. Well, no, he's kind of stayed in the kill me. He didn't get all irate like the other one did. Anyway, he gets frustrated because he's trying to get him up, because the tool that Murta has needs to go in the nape of his neck. Well, as we mentioned, this is a very large thing now.
Pus-filled sack bag of skin.
And it's buried under bodies. So getting him up out of there and exposing the nape of his neck isn't exactly in a very convenient way. It's very difficult. He's getting frustrated. He doesn't know what to do. He finally decides, fuck it, I'm going to go get an axe.
The little girl coaxes him into going to get it.
Yes, that's right.
There's an axe in the office. You should go get it.
And then what does Murda say? Don't go anywhere.
Don't leave me. Don't leave me. She's yelling it.
This is where I'm like, okay, we had two scenes that played out very much in the same way, in a sense. Him leaving, and something happens, and then nothing happens. So, why did they attack her this time? Was it because he had already gotten into the body, you think? That's my question right now. Why was she safe before, but not now?
Because they didn't at that point totally like the whole plan. Maybe the children didn't see the entire plan of everything unfolding. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they just, timing of it was of the essence, basically. You know, maybe he was further away. Maybe he was down a corridor and around the corner or some shit as opposed to out the straight door. Who knows?
True.
Let's be real, too. The kids were, even if they were possessed and everything, Pedro has proven that he's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and they lock him in the room in the office where the not axe is.
Yeah.
You know, I think him being right there with her, the reason she wanted him to stay was if they did try anything, he would at least be able to, you know, I think if they all ganged up on him, yes, he probably would not be able to stand his own. I could be wrong, but let's be real. He knows how to fuck up a kid. Let's be honest.
He's beaten enough of.
Yeah,
you know, I think that's really what it boils down to. They didn't
and
see
Pedro
her as big of a
also
threat.
himself is a catalyst too, because he pushes the chaos along, which, you know, we can return to speak at the end. And so like they maybe Uriel and the demon baby and all the children, they wouldn't have made it this far without the choices that Pedro had made.
Good point. So yeah, he goes after this axe after being coaxed by the little girl. And in that time we hear Myrta get attacked. And then he comes back and they're just, I mean, these kids are...
They're hammering her head or some shit like that. And it's like wet thunks again, similar sounding to the chick in the beginning with the axe in her face. Like these wet, dull sounds are just gross.
And the worst part of that is as they're dragging, it's like, it's overkill, but it's so brutal. They're dragging her, smack, dragging her, smack, dragging her, smack. And it's all just one motion together. Like the one little girl's just wailing on her while they're, it's cold, it's calculated, and it's just spaced enough apart to where it's you've just gotten over the last hit, and then bam, there's another one.
And proves that children are truly mean little shits. So at that point, Pedro's, I think he's just had enough, because he looks right over at Uriel and he's like, fuck this. He takes the tool that she had, or at least part of it. And
he pops his own head out of the hole, remember, too?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't need Uriel to lift up his body. Like, he does it himself. He, like, pokes out like a prairie dog out of a hole, and he's like, hey, girl, you want to kill me now?
Like whack-a-mole, like, hey, get me.
Now, granted, I know he didn't know how to use the tools, but maybe that's something that could have been talked about. You know, just in case there was a separation.
I don't think there was time, really.
Probably not.
This is your job. Get the body up. I'll kill it.
Yeah. So he didn't even try to figure out how to work this tool. He's just like, fuck it, I'm bashing this thing's head in. And he just goes to town on Uriel's face. And, of course, all that does is lead to the birth of some little demon child.
A naked, bloody child.
Yes. Who wipes his bloody little fingers on his forehead and just walks away. Into the sunrise, not the sunset, the sunrise.
Yeah, and all the children are following him. They all just leave Pedro sitting on the floor with his bloody forehead.
They should have had them walk into a cornfield.
It really does. You really think about it in that moment of children of the corn, right? Like, yeah.
That would have been so spot on.
And I'm glad they didn't kill. Like, this film could have gone a very different direction in that moment. They could have killed Pedro. Like, the kids could have killed him in, like, the most brutal way possible.
But they had what they wanted at this point, so...
Yeah, and...
We've got better things to do out there in the world.
And they left him to suffer. And...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love films where evil wins, because it doesn't happen that often.
That's true.
So, Pedro goes back to Myrta's house, finds his brother, and his son. Mother's nowhere to be found. I wasn't sure how this was going to play out, because they do return home, and then Jimmy finds the boy that they had forgotten about. I'd forgotten about him. I thought he already took off and went home.
Yeah,
he was still up
from
in
the first family, it's Uriel's brother. He's still up in the stable or whatever where he was. He didn't go home.
No, he looks like he's just terrified. Like he's just been staying there. He's like, I just don't want to go anywhere. I'm staying right here. And then he starts talking to Jimmy and starts kind of pointing out some things and some very familiar story details. Like, we heard from Myrta earlier about the guy at their church and started to puke and eating people.
But he also mentions too that like something was in his brain and he did things and then he didn't remember or have control. And now he seems to be back to normal.
Mm-hmm. Because he mentioned something about chopping someone up, wasn't it? Killing somebody, chopping their bodies up. And then I think he even admitted to devouring his mother.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
Yes. And then it was at that point we cut to Jair, who's eating ice cream. The apple ice cream.
He's back to his full autistic self.
Mm-hmm. Back to his autistic self. We think everything's fine. And then he starts coughing and coughing and coughing. And the moment that shit started happening, I was like, fuck. Because we never found out where the grandmother or the mother went, his grandmother.
But the dad thinks, Pedro thinks he's choking on his spoon because he was eating ice cream and the spoon's just hanging out of his mouth. So he goes over to help him to take out the spoon.
And then as he's helping him get this cough loose, something starts to come out and then it's a little blood. And
this is my second barf factor in the film where I was like, where I really I felt some stomach acid come up into my throat. Yeah,
he starts to just dig in his mouth and finds some hair.
It's the hair.
Finds a necklace.
It's the hair.
Yeah. So, we pretty much know what happened to the grandmother. And then film pretty much ends with Pedro going outside, dropping to his knees and just screaming and the end of all things.
Such a powerful moment too. Like I just felt for his character in that moment where he's screaming. And I thought about that. These kids that did these terrible things that are no longer, possessed, but have these memories of it.
Mm-hmm.
His son will never be able to express his remorse or these terrible memories that he has, and he'll have to live with that his whole life without being able to fully express it, which is its own kind of hell.
Yeah.
So it's a downer at the end. You're just like, oh my God. But it also makes you wonder what's going to happen now with all of this.
Oh yeah.
Like, do I think this movie needs a sequel? Not necessarily, because it's brilliant at what it does. If they wanted to maybe do some other form of
the demon baby out there in the world,
Yeah, I mean, even if they wanted to write like a book that was like possibly like what happened after all of this, I think that would be interesting to read. But I don't think you're going to capture the same allure that you had with this film, because there was a lot of hype around this film. And I get really leery when a film has a lot of hype because I feel like it's going to let me down. But I got to be honest, this movie did not let me down at all. Like I actually was
lucky to watch it before the hype happened. So
yeah, I would agree that I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't sure if it would be something up my alley, but it engaged me pretty hard from the start. And I was like, all right, I dig what this is putting down, and it didn't let go. So I was in it.
It starts, like I said, the second it starts until it ends. Like we're on a crazy train. And even on a second viewing, because I was like, I had memories of all those like chaotic scenes. I'm like, oh God, do I want to watch this again? And Steven and I were talking. He's like, it can't be worse than Necromantic. And I'm like, I'll fucking never watch Necromantic again. And no, it's not the same level. This is good. And this is in a good way. And it really does even hold up like that on a second viewing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is what I'm going to revisit when I have when I can sit and go back and like rewind parts and stuff like that. Like I'm going to watch this with another level of investment. Like I was invested this time when I watched it, but I feel like you have to watch it at least twice so that you can get a really good appreciation of it and see things that you might have missed or things that you might not have fully comprehended in the right light. So, but yeah, I will suggest this film to anybody who's not watched it, even though we've spoiled the shit out of it. I don't care.
Well, I hope that people who listen to this, because, all right, so I'll say this. Since this is a foreign language film, it's going to be hard for me to recommend it to everybody. As good as it is, I feel like that we are people who can watch a foreign language film, and it doesn't bother us per se. I understand that some people, subtitles are an issue. Like it's a focus problem. They'd rather be focused on the movie and then they're having to focus on reading. So it becomes problematic, and that's why they can't get into it. I read several reviews on Shudder itself where people just like couldn't get into it. And
my brother didn't like it, and I was like, "What?"
And
he does watch subtitle. He watches tons of subtitle movies, so I don't know what bug was up his ass that he didn't enjoy this film.
And it could just maybe not be up his will. I don't know. So, as much as I would love for people to watch this movie as is, I wouldn't be against the idea of a remake if handled by the right person. Only for those people. Only for those people who do not like to watch subtitles. I'm trying to.
Or do what they did with Train to Busan. Train to Busan got really popular, and some people didn't watch it because there wasn't a dubbed version. Do a dub.
You could do a dub.
I would rather. I'm not a dub fan, but I would pick a dub over, like, say, an American remake.
Fair.
Because it's like you said, film's so great.
Yeah, I feel like there are so many horror fans out there who are going to miss out on this film because it's a foreign language film, and because they have this mental block with subtitles. I even know people who cannot watch a movie in black and white, and that one I can understand because I used to be that way as a kid. And as I got older, I was just like, fuck it, who cares? Color, no color, what does it matter? But something as a kid, you're just like, I gotta have color. It's weird. So I just feel like there's some people out there who are going to miss out on this film. That's the only reason I'm even advocating or
I'm going to say it sucks to be them and to give it a shot. And,
100%.
Just suck it up and watch it.
Yeah. Just fucking sack up and get it done.
Guys, I was trying to advocate for you, but, everybody, I'm being railroaded here.
I'm sorry, Steven, but
I know I'm with you guys 100%. I will take the original all day, every day. That will be my preferred version. Like when they're talking about the Train to Busan remake they're doing over here in the States.
No,
They are, and I'm not looking forward to it because I know it will not hit the same way.
No.
They're going to do something. They're going to try to jazz something up. They're going to try to make it, look at this. It's all spooky and scary and exciting. World War Z is the worst fucking zombie movie.
I'm going to fucking fight you.
World War Z. Okay, I'll just leave it there.
You think it's the worst zombie film ever?
Well, here's what happened. I think I just hit when I watched that movie, I think the zombie craze had hit peak. And I was so fucking over it. And I watched it and I was like, I can't
I can understand that.
Because it got so out of hand. It was like 1 minute they're not there and the next minute they're everywhere. And I think that one just broke me.
That movie just makes me clench my butthole because there's so much adrenaline and things happening in certain ways. And I really enjoyed that one. It's very different from the book.
Yeah, I have heard that too.
Yeah.
So, but in any case, when Evil Lurks, for some reason I want to keep saying where. When.
I know, me too.
Yeah,
where, when, how?
Why?
There's all the sequels. There's all the sequels.
Yeah.
When herpes lurks.
When herpes lurks. That is going to be our porn, our porn horror version of this film.
The porn parody.
Yeah. It's going to be terrifying and seductive all at the same time. So, Ramblers, if you've not seen this movie, we all recommend it.
Big time.
I don't. It's on Shudder. It's easy to find. Definitely try to give it a shot with the subtitles. I understand it's difficult. There are no sub or dubs out there, and I don't think it would. It's not going to work. Dubs don't hit the same way. I know for a fact. So, if you guys have nothing else to say about this film, I'm going to wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm good. Just watch it if you can, people.
Yeah, I'm really glad that the both of you liked it, and thanks for having me back.
You are always welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you for this recommendation because I hate that we've slept on this for so long.
No, everything is the right time. I like bringing you weird movies you've never seen before that horrify you a little bit.
Like some movie called Eden Lake that broke our sensible heads.
Yes.
Traumatizing ending.
Right.
That's 2 traumatizers I brought for you. So
I'll
ask to come back when I find another one.
Yeah, please. Or we could just do necromantic.
No, I will never ever watch that again.
What the hell was wrong with those people? I mean, seriously.
Then there's people right now that are like, fuck you, Necromantic is the best thing ever. Because we did watch it on the last drive-in. I think it was like last year or the year before. And oh my God. And people were just like, yeah, I jerk off to Necromantic. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I've got to block you now. So
Jesus Christ.
There's all types. No kink shaming, except maybe corpses. Good
point. No kink shaming. Sorry about it. We don't go down necrophilia. So Ramblers, have you seen When Evil Lurks? Let us know on social media at Horror Ramblings. If you've got more to say, a tweet's just not going to cover it. Send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com. If you want to discuss horror with like-minded individuals, join our Facebook group or join us on Discord. You can even find us on Instagram to see an assortment of horror images. And if you're feeling generous, want to support the show financially, head on over to patreon.com/pencil and paper productions to chuck in a buck. You can help the show grow by leaving a review on your favorite podcasting app. Tell your friends to find it on their favorite podcasting platform as well. If you happen to be using Spotify, take a look at our weekly questions and polls. Let us know what you think. Don't forget, Pencil Paper Productions at checkout on Fangoria for 20% off. And finally, if you prefer a central hub, keep up with any and all things over at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes for your convenience.
And remember, guys, stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even more.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.